Well, hello there, all you amazing people. Today we are going to look at probably the most idiotic statement ever been made by a human being called Microsoft helps Linux adoption. We all want to believe this. That's not the case. Linux growth is over 30 years at 3%, 30 plus years. If Microsoft massively helped Linux growth, that would be way higher. Way higher. It's a 6 minutes video, and I can probably make this into a 2-hour rant.
This is interesting. I like looking at this. The Linux desktop, what is it? The year of the Linux desktop people always talk about. When is the year of the Linux desktop?
Never.
I wouldn't fault Microsoft for Linux's shortcomings. That's the thing. I talk a
See, I fucking love this. Not the only, but 9 out of 10 times, if there is issues or faults or shortcomings in the Linux community with Linux, it's nobody else's fault than Linux. Okay? I am sick and tired of this mentality of blaming everyone else for our shortcomings or Linux reasons for this and that. Are there things that makes it a little bit difficult? Yes. Are there things that makes it a little bit harder for Linux? Yes, but it's not holding it back to a standstill.
A lot about Microsoft lock-in and how people like to move over to Linux, but it's really not Microsoft's doing. If anything, I think Microsoft is helping Linux adoption. Because I think back to what really made me switch in 2018. Yeah, there were some haters, and I kind of feed off negativity, and that's why I probably do as well as I do on YouTube. But
that's an idiotic statement. You do well on YouTube because you know how to clickbait and you know how to manipulate your audience into watch your videos. Meaning that making subpar content and get people to watch it, basically. Do the absolute minimum work for the absolute maximum benefits.
I look back on that, and I look at the adoption of Linux. I moved to Linux because Microsoft, I think it was around the time of 1803 and 1809, they're just terrible Windows updates, and it was just causing me all kinds of grief, whether it was at...
More people than not have no issues with Windows. Just putting it out there. There are more people that have less issue with Windows than there are people having massive issues with Windows. There are also, yes, they may bitch and moan. Everyone bitch and moan here and there. I've been using Linux for 26 years. I bitch and moan about Linux, okay? I've been using Microsoft Windows for probably 30 years. I bitch and moan about Windows. We all bitch and moan. That don't mean that we want to switch. He's in the minority. You are in the minority if you think like he does.
At work, from someone that for some odd reason had a laptop and I had to mess with it and it got updated to those versions. It forced me. I was like, this update cycle that Microsoft is doing is just ungodly bad. I
installed Windows 10 in 2015. I ran the same hard disk up till 3 months ago with same Windows installed. Never reinstalled it, no slowdown, no issues whatsoever. Had a few blue screens, had some malware creeping in and whatnot. Never had to reinstall, never felt any performance issues with it. Had some bad updates, they got fixed later on. Had some good updates that went bad later on. Just like any other system, you cannot run Linux and only have good updates. Linux also breaks it. Linux also do regression. There was an NVIDIA update that did regression to the performance. There has been kernel updates that have done regression to the performance of Linux and the stability of Linux. This happens with software. What he was looking for was an excuse to use Linux, so he blamed Microsoft for that. But in reality, he needed an excuse.
And I have to get a different operating system, and that's what drove me to Linux. There was nothing necessarily appealing for Linux desktop at the time because when we look at it, and from an IT professional, I've been in IT for, 2 decades, typically this is how it works. I know I'm going to get some people upset here, but, it's the day. This whole stream's been hot take after hot take. Why stop now? Really, here's how it works. Just as a general, let's paint with a pretty broad brush here. Linux does servers the best. You look at data centers.
Depends on what kind of server role you want. Yes, data centers, web hosting, Linux is king. Management and stuff like that, I would probably say Microsoft, like user management, resource management, and blah, 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 blah. It depends on what server role you want. But yeah, there are areas in the server world where Linux is category the best fucking boy in town, basically.
It's mostly going to be Linux servers running, whatever it might be. Linux servers typically what you run. I do, my forte is Windows servers, but I obviously still mess around a lot with Linux servers. So I preferred the Linux server because I knew it was just set it and forget it, and you didn't have to worry about updates and a lot of other shenanigans you did with Windows Server.
Talk to a Windows admin and know what they're doing, and they say the same thing about Windows updates or Windows servers. Again, it just shows that if he is a Windows Server expert and he can't set Windows Server up to set and forget, he's probably not as good as Windows Server as he think he is. Just putting it out. I know he has some Microsoft certified professional fucking certification up his wazoo, but have you learned anything?
So you always preferred Linux server. And then from your desktop, well, being in Windows, I just told you, I've been in Windows since 1980s as a kid. And that's what I learned and grew up on. And I've been messing and tinkering around for that entire time. I know Windows front and back. And it just is very comfortable for me. No matter what Windows I'm in. I may not like it, but it's very comfortable. And that's just generally how things are. Most IT professionals prefer a Linux server, and then they prefer a Windows desktop.
I will agree with that. Yeah, in general, if you ask a IT professional, they want Linux to do the back-end stuff. If you put it into brackets here, like he said, servers and whatnot. Sometimes Windows, like Active Directory, Azure is fucking amazing. Okay, if Linux really want to take over the corporate world, they need to do something like Azure and Active Directory and all that fucking shit, because it is amazing. And all of the things you can do with that. But yeah, in general, if you want to set up a web server, if you want to set up blah, 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 Linux is kind of the go-to. And then they want to do the coding or the finesses or give the the workforce Windows computers. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the biggest one, like he says, familiarity. Most people have a Windows computer at home. Most people are comfortable with a Windows computer. So therefore, why rock the boat? Why make their life more inconvenient? Because here's the thing. If you're the IT guy, or one of the few IT guys, because IT departments are always understaffed, if you're giving them something they're unfamiliar with, if you're giving them something they don't really know how to use correctly, or a little bit, what the fuck is this beast? You know who they're coming running to? You. You. So you make your decisions that makes your life easier and their life easier, because if their life is easy, your life is easy. A really good IT support guy at work should not be doing anything. Because if he don't have any work, and his only job is to give support to the workforce, that means they have no problems. That means that he's done his job correctly, or the IT department done that correctly job.
Because that's what we know. And that's typically yielded and netted the best results for us. Mm-hmm. And most times when you're working in business, you're having to mess with Active Directory and GPOs and other stuff. So when you're launching stuff out, it's usually going to be Windows devices, and it's easier if you're on Windows to just mess around and interface with those devices. Yes, I know you can do it in Linux, and I do that often with Ramina and RDP and those things. But at the end of the day, most IT professionals really love Linux server, and at the end of the day, they're sitting on a Windows desktop.
I did not expect that I would agree this much with this dude. He's right. I thought I would be waiting my fucking testicles off, but yeah, he's right.
And that's just kind of how it is. It has nothing to do with Linux failing or Linux desktop failing. No. It's just there's not really that the lock-in is not what scares people away from Linux desktop. It's the fact Linux desktop is scary for most average users.
No, I would not say scary. What puts Linux... I've talked to Linux new to Linux users since the 90s, okay? I've talked to people that want to try out Linux since the 90s. I've tried to convert people to Linux since the 90s. Yes, it is overwhelming. It's a little bit scary, but you know what is the biggest issue? I can't run the programs I want to run. And alternatives don't fucking matter. The main reason I see a lot of people not going over to Linux is I can't run the software that I want. I can't run the peripherals that I want. What fucking distribution do I choose? Those are the three main issues.
There's not that compatibility, or they don't know it and they don't want to learn it. I mean, all those things are true.
Kind of, but not the main reason.
You'll see probably a newer generation come out where I think Mac is really starting to steal a ton of market share. You also have...
So Mac has been stealing a lot of market share ever since 2000. This is nothing new. I kind of call it the life cycle of a Linux user. They get tired of Windows. they go over to Linux. Then after like 3 to 5 years, they either go back to Windows or over to Mac OS. Because Mac OS give nerds, it's mostly nerds that go back to Mac OS, by the way. Because Mac OS is this like perfect blend of the good things from Windows and the good things for the Unix side of things. So you can do a lot of the same Unix shit with Mac OS if you know how to do it. You can do almost the same shit on Mac OS as you can under Linux. You just can't customize the desktop that much. But all the back-end shit that we love to do, tinkering config files and setting these up using Homebrew to get all these free and open source programs, you can do almost everything you can do on Linux, you can do under Mac.
Some Chromebook, and there's probably that same... I do see Linux gaining some popularity, but there's never really truly going to be the year of the Linux desktop because there's just not that mass market appeal.
Nope.
You got all these old people that aren't going to want to change. They're not going to learn a new operating system.
Not necessarily right, but I understand what he's saying is that we have this. This is what he was meant to be saying. We already running Windows. It's functioning correct. It's functioning good. It's been working for us for 10, 15 years in our company and stuff like that. Why the fuck should we change something that's not broken, not giving us any hassle? For the movement, for the cult, to save 10% maybe?
The younger, soy latte drinking 20-year-olds out there going and getting their Starbucks, they're going to want their fancy MacBooks with the little Apple logo, and they're going to be Mac users. I get that. And there's going to be this younger generation that might even adopt the Chromebook mentality, which is kind of like a bastardized...
So I'm going to say this right now. I should make a video about it. None of that is going to happen. The next 5 to 10 years... will be the year of the tablet. Tablets and phones are going to take over the computing world. You see less and less people having physical computers in their home. You see more and more people relying on phones and tablets.
This version of Linux. Well, it's actually a bastardized version of Gentoo Linux if we get real specific.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, that's where we're at. There's never really that Linux desktop, the year of the Linux desktops.
He's right.
Not around the corner, and never been around the corner. It's still 1 or 2% of the population, and that's just where Linux will live.
Yeah.
And it's still there's always a spot for it, and there's definitely use cases.
True, and this is what I wish. Oh God, I really wish that Linux users understood this. I'm baffled that I'm agreeing with him this much, to be honest. But anyway, Linux has to coexist, not dominate. They want mein Führer mentality. They want to take over the world and extinguish everything else. That will never happen, and that mentality has never been a successful mentality.
What I want to see with Linux is the things it does the best in, it should dominate. There should never be me walking by a blue screen of death at a kiosk, at a hotel, or an airport. No. Like, that should never happen. Those machines should be running Linux.
So here's the thing I've seen, and go Google this. You can see this yourself. There have been Linux's blue screens of death on kiosk terminals. There have been Apple beach ball of death on kiosk systems. No system is 100% foolproof. I don't like this mentality. Oh, if it only ran Linux, that will never happen. It will happen. Will it happen more? Depends. Will it happen less? Depends.
And I don't... It boggles my mind in 2023 that is still a thing. Like, what the hell? Like, what are these kiosk companies doing? Reach out to me. I'll build that shit for free for you guys. You can kick me back royalties or whatever it is. We can work something out.
Here comes. I am the best. I know better. I can fix everything. Here comes the part of him I really despise. You cannot make it better. You need to understand the uptime. You cannot sit here just because you've seen a few fucking kiosk stations breaking down. You don't know what's the issue. What if Windows is not the issue? What if the fucking software is the issue? The software running that kiosk interface. What if that is the issue? We tend to blame Microsoft and Windows for everything going on with Windows. Here's something that if you talk to knowledgeable IT people will say is that Windows, Linux, Mac OS, let's just say 8 out of 10 times there is an issue with those systems. It's not because of the system. It's badly coded third-party applications. But who's getting the blame? The operating system. When you have an issue with your computer, more than not, it's either your hardware's fault or it's a badly coded driver third-party software. It's not the operating system. At least not in It's been the last 15 years or something like that, or 13 years if we go for 2010. But who do we blame when shit hits the fan? The operating system.
I'll do it on the cheap, and I'll build you whatever program you want for a damn kiosk to show images or a directory. That's pretty simple. That's a very, very simplistic program. And the fact they run it on top of a Windows kernel blows my effing mind in 2023.
And this is where it shows that he has no idea what he's talking about. He did so fucking well for about almost 6 minutes, and now he's ruining everything. This shows his complete lack of knowledge about what he's talking about. Complete lack of knowledge.
My gosh. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, no, there's never going to be the year of the Linux desktop. But
True, agree.
There's things Linux does better than just anything else.
Yeah, but there's also things that Windows does better than anyone else. There's things that FreeBSD does better than anyone else. 95% of this video I agreed with, and then he ruined everything in the last fucking minute. Okay? This is why I put Chris Titus Tech almost on the same pedestal as eBoss Central. Chris Titus Tech is a guy that has a lot of knowledge behind him and a lot of paper, but still come across like someone that knows absolutely fucking nothing about majority of IT work. He's probably I was about to say piss in Danish. He's probably a fucking good server administrator. He's probably really fucking good at server integration and server management. But that's how far it goes. Anything besides servers and Windows servers and specific server roles, video after video, he shows how big the gap between what he's saying and lack of and knowledge is, because he always start, and I noticed this with his video format, he almost always start out with having some really good points, and you could be like, yeah, I can kind of agree with this, and then the longer you listen to him, he just fucking stepped into one trap after another trap, falling over his own fucking laces, shitting himself in the face, and just the longer you watch Chris Titus Tech, the more he fucks everything up for himself. Because then he goes from areas that he has a lot of knowledge in, and then he's like, well, if I know a lot about this, I should also know a lot about this. No, just because you're a good server admin, that don't mean that you're a good front-end administrator. That don't mean that you're a good consultant for anything desktop related. That don't mean that you're a good programmer. That don't mean that you're good at making front-end program, which this a kiosk program is. It's a heavily front-ended program. There are whole specific education specialized in doing those kind of things. People, and IT people also, they tend to have this massive fucking disbelief that if I'm good at one thing with computers, I'm good at everything with computers. IT is so vast and so complicated, and there's so many nuances in it, that there are paths that you take that takes years and years just to be an expert in that one thing. I have no doubt about that he's really fucking good at a few things within IT, but his general knowledge about IT, his general understanding about IT is on par with someone, I would say, that was like a year into computer science or something like that. The last 2 or 3 or 4 years, I cannot count how many Chris Titus Tech refugees me and my community have helped because of his bad mojo with Linux. See you all later. Bye bye.